Can UNC make any noise out of this? I know a lot of fans want to see them make a run, but a lot of fans feel like it's not going to happen. Let's get into it. We're going to break down the full bracket, and you'll get my predictions for every single game. Florida versus whoever comes out of this 16 seed. Look, shout out to Lehigh, shout out to Prairie View A&M. Both of them had great seasons to get to this point. Prairie View A&M as an 8 seed, getting all the way to their conference championship game and winning that. Neither team can beat Florida, so take the Gators in that one. Clemson versus Iowa. Every 8-9 matchup can get really, really difficult, and it's usually a coin flip game. This one, I think, is the easiest 8-9 matchup I've had to pick. I'm taking Iowa. Clemson hasn't been a good team for the last month of the season. Injuries to Wellings, the starting center for Clemson, is just going to be too much for them to overcome. Iowa is battle-tested in the Big Ten, and Ben McCollum is one of the best coaches in March, specifically from ATOs and X and O situation. So take the Hawkeyes to get through this one. Vandy versus McNeese. McNeese will try to create a ton of basically chaos and turnover rate. They're one of the best defensive turnover rate teams in the country, which means Tanner and Miles are going to have to take care of the basketball and make good decisions. I think a month ago, if I knew this was the matchup, I probably would take McNeese State to win that game, but Vandy doing what they just did in the SEC tournament, I think the confidence is back. Duke Miles is looking really good. I think Vandy looks more like the team we saw at the start of the year versus the team we saw in the heart of that SEC conference play. Take the Commodores to get through. Nebraska versus Troy. Now look, Troy can rebound the basketball and they can shoot threes. One of those things Nebraska can do well on the three-point line, but Nebraska can be susceptible to giving up rebounds, and Troy could feast against them and have a lot of kick out and spray out threes and really give this Cornhuskers team problems. And if Nebraska isn't hitting from the outside, they will not win this basketball game. We get 14 seeds over 3 seeds regularly in March. I think when you look at the other 3-14 matchups, there's not a ton of value in those. This probably is the one. If you want to feel frisky and you want to take a 14 seed, take Troy here. Nebraska has never won a March Madness game. I think there's honestly feeling a lot of pressure and anxiety to get this done, specifically after losing their first game in the Big Ten tournament. I think there's a lot of value in taking Troy here. Take Troy, have some fun. It's March. UNC versus VCU. VCU does not have the interior post presence to deal with Vasar. I think Vasar has a really, really big game, and the guard play is okay for Carolina to get through this one. I can see Seth and Henry having good nights. Jaron sprinkles in a couple threes. I think Luka's really going to struggle, though, with the athleticism and physicality that VCU can do. So you're going to have to look at Seth. You're going to have to look at Jarrett. You're going to have to look at Henry to have really good games for Carolina, which should happen. Take Carolina to get into the round of 32. Illinois versus Penn. Not really a lot here. Take Illinois. St. Mary's versus Texas A&M. Look, I'm not a fan of buckyball, and Texas A&M has been one of the worst teams in Power 5 over the last couple months, finishing the year 4-7 after their really hot start. I think they kind of got found out. I think they're realizing that their style of play and what they were doing, they just don't have the guys to really make that run. I really like St. Mary's in this situation, so take the Gaels here. And then Houston versus Idaho. Shout out to the Vandals for getting there, but Cougs will move on in this one. Florida versus Iowa. I know some people are concerned with Florida after the Vanderbilt game, but realistically, the size and physicality that they have in this situation, Iowa, I think, can make it interesting, and Ben McCollum as a coaching factor can get Iowa close. But I think Florida is just too much. They probably win this game somewhere between the 9-11 rate. Vanderbilt versus Troy or Nebraska. Either way you go, I think Vandy moves on in this one. If they play Nebraska, I don't love Nebraska living and dying by the 3. I think Vandy can take a lot of that away. And then again, it kind of comes down to post play for Nebraska versus what Vandy has inside. I like Vandy in that situation. If it is Troy, Vandy has the size and physicality to take away some of the rebounding edge that we saw with Troy against Nebraska. Take Vandy, regardless of who this is, Vandy to the Sweet 16. North Carolina versus Illinois. While I think North Carolina got a very favorable 11 seed compared to South Florida, Texas, NC State, any of these other teams that could come out of it, I think they got the worst 3 seed that they could have picked up. I think Illinois gets their payback 20 years later. Not entirely the same, but they beat them in the national championship game in 2005. I think the size and physicality that Illinois will show in the post will be too much for Henry, Jared, and Zayden. The guard play is really good at Illinois with Wagler and Curbelo. UNC could honestly really get overmatched in this one, and I think this ends up being a really bad loss for Carolina. And if that's the situation, UNC goes into a very, very critical offseason with Hubert Davis and the entire state of the program if they lose this game by 15 or more points. So take the Illini in that. St. Mary's versus Houston. St. Mary's has not seen a team like Houston this year. Gonzaga is not at the level of the Cougs right now. I think Flemings can go wild. I think the bigs are too much for St. Mary's. Take Houston and move on and get to the Sweet 16. Florida versus Vandy. I think everyone is going to overreact and pick Vandy after what we just saw in the SEC tournament semifinal. Vandy shot almost 50% from 3 and doubled up Florida on the 3-point makes. Florida turned the ball over 14 times, and Vandy capitalized on that, scoring 24 points off those 4 turnovers, 20 of those in the first half. I think Florida cleans it up. I think they get their redemption. They've been one of the best teams in the country, winning by an average margin of 20 up until that Vandy game. Take the Gators to get into the Elite 8. And Houston versus Illinois. This is going to be an absolute showdown in H-Town in the Sweet 16. You've got two great freshman guards in Wagler and Flemings. I think the size of Illinois can give Houston problems, and that Houston has struggled when their bigs get into foul trouble. Illinois can exploit that, and all Underwood has to do is just have them play their game. Keep it simple. Don't get frantic from the crowd because this game will be played in Houston. Don't get frantic by Houston's defense. Attack the bigs, get them in foul trouble, post up Flemings with Wagler. Illinois should win this game. Not easily, but they should win comfortably and lead probably most of the game. Houston will have some sort of pop, seeing that this is going to be a home game for them, but take Illinois to get to the Elite Eight. Illinois versus Florida will be a great Elite Eight matchup. It might be the best Elite Eight matchup we do get. I think the size and physicality between both teams, they're very similar. I'm going to take Florida in this one because I think they have been playing as the best team in the country over the last couple months outside of one team who's in the West, but we'll wait to get on them. So I will take Florida to beat Illinois and get to the Final Four. They're my pick out of the South region. Guys, please get your picks in. Who do you think is going to come out of the South? Where do you disagree with me? Hit like if you enjoyed the video. Hit subscribe to your name in the portal. I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks.